Awesome. Would anyone like to come off mute and share either what they put in the chat, or if you haven't put in anything in the chat yet, just sharing your name, your pronouns, where you're joining from, and why you decided to join us today, and what you hope to learn. Feel free to raise your hand. Okay, I might call on someone I know, so I'm sorry if I know you and I say your name. But the first person that I see that I know from my team is Quinn. Quinn, would you feel comfortable unmuting and just sharing your name and why you decided to join us today?
Sure, I guess. So yeah, my name's Quinn. I'm from Hampton, or I'm from DC originally, but I currently live in Hampton. And yeah, I did this or similar training last spring, and it was very helpful in kind of getting me to understand kind of the how and what of organizing and all that stuff. But I feel like I've kind of want a bit of a refresher on it and kind of to yeah and see if things might be different now because we're in a very different political landscape and kind of and I'm in a very different place in my life now in all that, so definitely want to kind of see how things might be different this time around and to yeah continue helping the movement go forward. So
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm also really excited to see that even though you've taken this before, you still came back just to get a refresher. That's great organizing. You know, we can always continue to enhance our skills. So I'm really excited that you joined us today. Does anyone else want to share? No pressure. If not, we can move on and start our training. Think we're good? Okay, awesome. Oh wait, we just did this. So I think we can, unless we're introducing the facilitators. I don't think so. Okay, awesome. So let's get started. We want to make sure that everyone can easily follow along with the training. You can turn on closed captions by selecting the closed captions icon located in the Zoom toolbar on desktop. Or if you're on your mobile device, if you don't see a closed captioning button, you'll need to select the back arrow in the top left screen of the top corner of your phone, and then the settings icon, I believe, then meetings, and then enable the show closed captioning when available toggle button. If you're having any difficulty doing so and would like assistance, please message us in the chat and we'll try to help as we can. Awesome. So this is our agenda for the day. We'll start off by doing a welcome, allowing people to settle in, get snacks if you're joining us in person, introducing our facilitators. My name is Liani, so I realized I forgot to say that. We'll be sharing community agreements, talking about why we're doing the Organizing 101 training, moving on to an intro to public narrative and the story of self, and then drafting our own story of self and practicing, sharing those. And then we'll also come back to the larger group and then share and debrief stories of self. Then we'll take a small break for lunch, and then we'll come back and do an introduction to relational meetings, practice having relational meetings with one another, and then at the end, we'll come back and debrief and talk through next steps. Hopefully that sounds good with everyone. Awesome. So in the confirmation email that you all received on Thursday, we asked for you all to review community agreements that will help make this training great for everyone. I'd like to go around and have 4 different people read these community agreements and ask that everyone agree to these. Please raise your hand if you can read one.
Okay, Jim's gonna go for it.
Yay.
The safe space, brave space, learning, new things can be uncomfortable and challenging, requiring us all to be brave and step into our own discomfort. But our ability to be brave rests on a foundation of feeling safe, of being seen, heard, and respected. Wherever possible, strive to build a space that is both safe and brave.
Thank you. And Xander, thank you for your note. Johanna, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, or Joanna. Feel free to read the second one if you'd still like to share. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes, okay, I'm unmuted now. And it is Johanna. Take space, make space. Be aware of the space you are or are not taking up. If you've been participating a lot, try making space for others. If you have not participated very much, try making up more space by taking up more space.
Thank you. Would anyone like to read the third community agreement? And feel free to raise. Oh, yay, Amber, go ahead.
All right. 3, what's shared here stays here. What's learned here leaves here. People may share things about themselves and their stories that are personal. Let's hold confidentiality for one another by only sharing our learnings, not other people's stories outside of this space.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And would someone like to read the last community agreement for us? Britt, awesome. Go ahead.
Okay, be present and lean in. Engage meaningfully and authentically in the conversation that's going on in the virtual room, not the one on your phone.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you all for volunteering. Can I get a thumbs up from everyone who can commit to these community agreements today? Yay! Love to see the thumbs, especially the ones in person. Awesome. Thank you all. Okay, so why are we doing this? Why an organizing 101 training? Why are we doing this right now? So, for context, we launched the Organizing 101 series over 2 years ago because we wanted to continue to build a powerful grassroots organizing infrastructure that's grounded by an organized team of people on the ground who are driving the work. As we've discussed in Power Hours, if you've been able to join us for one of those sessions in a previous summer, and in membership meeting settings, we want to build semi-autonomous CCAN action member teams of at least 3 to 7 people in your communities that are working to build power and take on local climate justice campaigns and CCAN priority campaigns. We're really proud to say that since we launched this program, that CCAN has trained over 40 people and has built volunteer teams in Baltimore, DC, Fairfax, Richmond, and in Hampton Roads. And we want to continue to recruit more people to join our action teams and build and launch new action teams across the region. However, in order to get there, we need to train our volunteers on the tactics we need to do our base building and outreach and to create a stronger, tighter knit community of volunteer activists. And so as we continue with the training today, I'd love for folks in the chat to respond to the following. And I believe somebody will be putting it in the chat. Thank you, Ayla. The question is, who's been involved in campaign work previously? Who's doing this work with CCAN for the first time? So I guess first, are we raising hands? Or not?
Yeah, folks are welcome to raise their hands or just to jump in.
Yeah, I guess real quick, raise your hand if you've been involved in campaign work previously. Interested to know. Okay, we have a couple people, few people. Awesome, awesome. And who is doing this work with CCAN for the first time? Awesome, love to see the new hands. Yay, okay. And I think that's my conclusion, and I'll pass it off to Mustafa.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Leonis, for doing that. So leadership in organizing is rooted in 3 questions. And some of you might be familiar with Rabbi Hillel. He's a teacher, a sage from the 1st century, but he posed these 3 questions that I always find moving, that are, if I'm not for myself, who am I? When I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? So these 3 questions focus on the interdependence of self, other, and action. In other words, the questions are asking us, number 1, what are my values? What am I called to do? Number 2, what are others with whom I'm in relationship with? What are we called to do? And number 3, what action does the world in which we live demand of us right now? So leadership requires, in organizing spaces, requires us to be accepting responsibility for enabling others to achieve purpose under conditions of uncertainty. It's actually a quote direct from Professor Marshall Gans, who is one of the co-founders of the United Farm Workers of America and has been a professor for many years at the Harvard Kennedy School. So why do you think, though, these are framed as questions? Why does Rabbi Hillel not just say, you should find what you're called to do, and you should know what who your community is? Why are these not just rewritten as statements as opposed to questions? Or why doesn't Rabbi Hillel just give us the answer?
Maybe because he wants us to understand our interdependence and how the way we interact with others will affect the outcome of what we're trying to do.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's also this understanding that the reason that we need to organize together, the future is uncertain, right? That you're exactly right, that this is about what the intersection of what our values and our needs are as individuals, how it relates to community, and how we can work together based on common interests, common values to build the power to build the community that we want. But we're exercising leadership together in this moment because we realize that we do not have control over the future, that we have to learn together to embrace uncertainty and to act together in this moment of uncertainty to have the best shot of moving forward together towards the world that we want to build. So let's go to the next slide, please. So what I want to say here is that as a basic definition, that organizing is a form of leadership that actually requires a constituency to turn its resources into the power to achieve its goals. So we often do this, particularly within CCAN, we often do this by doing recruitment and training and investing in the development of the leadership of people so that we can build the power that we need through the stories that we tell publicly, through the strategy that we execute to make real change, to get the outcomes that we're seeking. Next slide. Okay, so learning how to organize to build power, like in that process, we need to have 5 key leadership practices. 1 is having a shared story. 2 is a relational commitment, a commitment to one another. 3 is a clear leadership structure. And then 4 is a creative strategy to be successful in building power. And 5 is developing an effective action. And just for the purposes for our training today and then also for next weekend, we're really focused on the shared story and the relational commitment to one another. So creating a shared story. So organizing is motivated by these shared values. So the shared values are expressed through this practice called public narrative. And by learning this craft of public narrative, we can access our shared values to help us respond collectively to the challenges that we're facing with courage and acting together instead of with fear. Number two is creating a just relational commitment. So organizing is based in the relationships and creating mutual commitments to work together. So by building the genuine relationships, not just by showing up and just doing sort of what you're told to do, but by building relationships where you're doing the things that are together that you understand, help move a shared purpose forward. There are the things that you want to do, that you're excited to do, that you're motivated to do, that we build that genuine relational commitment. Go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to pass it to Xander to talk to us for a few minutes about what is public narrative.
Thanks, Mustafa. I'm Xander. I use he, him pronouns. I'm CCAN's Virginia Field Manager. So how do we create this shared story and actually move our neighbors and our communities to action? Literally, what do we say? The answer is we use public narrative. It's a type of storytelling, and it's something I use every day at CCAN. When I'm writing those CCAN emails that spam your inboxes, I'm using public narrative to decide what to say and how to communicate it. But what actually is it? Can someone tell me the 3 components of public narrative? Go ahead and raise your hand. If you're not sure, there's a little cheat sheet on the screen.
We have someone.
Great.
Is it call to leadership, strategy and action, and then shared values and shared experiences?
Yes, that is exactly what we're trying to communicate with public narrative. Thank you so much. So public narrative has 3 parts. The first part is a story of self. And like you just said, that should illustrate your call to leadership. It's your story. Each of us has a compelling story to tell. And your story of self should showcase a value or 2 that causes you to take action on climate. In some cases, the best way to show this value may not even be a climate story, or not in the way you think. Your values may be shaped by the choices that others have made while you were growing up. Think about parents, teachers, and friends. And that is what we're going to do in the breakouts today, getting the first draft of your story of self. And then the story of us, like our DC friend shared, that explains why all of us are here together today. It should illustrate the shared values about why our group is taking action on climate. When telling a story of us and thinking about what that is, try and think about a moment that you knew the people sitting beside you in that room shared one of your values. And then the last part of it, the story of now, like they said, that illustrates strategy and action. So it communicates the actual urgent challenge that we are calling on our community to join us in. It should have a source of hope, and it should illustrate the consequences of a choice. It should say, okay, we have a choice in front of us and it's urgent that we act now. And if we make the right choice, we'll have hope and we can have an incredible, wonderful future together. And it shows the costs of making the wrong choice. In the public narrative, the story of self and the story of us are kind of the mushy relationship building parts to get the listener to feel and be moved by those feelings and moved to act. And the story of now tells the listener what to do and how to do it. I think all of us can tell when a public narrative is missing a story of now. It's those speeches at rallies or those meetings you've had where you leave the interaction really fired up, really emotional or sad or moved, but you don't know what to do. And that's why the story of now is so important to have at the end of it. We have time for 1 or 2 clarifying questions, if someone could raise their hand if they have something. Okay, thanks, y'all. I'll keep us moving. So, as you brainstorm how to tell your story, it's sometimes hard to know where to start. Using the framework of a challenge, a choice, and an outcome is a good way to tell an impactful story, especially the story of self that you'll work on today. Think back to grammar courses you may have taken. We're telling stories. They've got characters, plots, peaks. If your story is just a list of facts from the UN climate report, it's true, it's scary, but it's not a story. The first step is to think about a specific choice you have made to take an action. For example, you chose to sign up for the 757 Action Team meeting back in February. You chose to major in environmental science in college. You chose to speak up at the dinner table when your uncle was saying climate denier stuff. You chose to have hope or to fight back when your community was impacted by oppression, racism, or climate disaster. Once you have a specific choice in mind, use these questions to further hone your story of self. These are in the participant guide if you're following along. They are, think about your challenge. Why did this challenge feel like a challenge? What was so challenging? And specifically, why was it your challenge? You have a lot of people that were in the same situation. A lot of people went to your school, were in your community. Not everyone made the same choice that you did to take action. Why was this something you were chosen to do? Why you felt called to do? And then your choice. Why did you make the choice that you did? Where did you get the courage or not? Where did you get the hope or not? Did your parents, community elders, or other life stories teach you how to act in that moment? How did it feel? And then what happened? What was the outcome? And how did that feel? Why did it feel that way? What did it teach you? And importantly, what do you want the listener to learn and feel from the outcome of your story? So what can this look like? Ting is about to share their entire public narrative. It includes her story of self, us, and now. And what you're going to do in the breakouts is just your story of self. Then next week, we'll have workshops to add the story of us and the story of now. As you're listening, here are a couple things to pay attention to. See if you can differentiate when Ting shares their story of self, when she moves to story of us, and when the story of now happens. Think about the challenge, choice, and outcome for Ting's story of self, us, and now. And remember that it's supposed to be a story. Think about the details in the story that make it pop and stick in your memory. And think about the values that Ting is communicating, especially in the story of self. And we wanted to show you an example of when you may use public narrative. So for the scenario in Ting's public narrative, she's in a lobby meeting. They're sitting on Zoom with a few neighbors and a state senator who represents their district. In this scenario, everyone has already done intros and been welcomed. The meeting is flowing. And now Ting is up and Ting's going to tell a public narrative to illustrate why they care about a particular climate policy, story of self, why this group of constituent cares, story of us, and why it's imperative that the senator act, story of now. The policy is Make Polluters Pay. It's a bill that would force the biggest polluters, the companies that cause the climate crisis like Exxon and Shell, to pay for recovery from climate disasters. This is a real thing. It passed in New York and Vermont. We introduced it in Virginia last legislative session. And there's some rumors that it may be coming to Maryland and DC if only a committed group of passionate climate activists can activate for it. So that's the scenario. So think about those questions as we start to listen to Ting's story.
It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was in my room, in my pajamas, as my spouse watched me pace, back and forth. Should I do it? I should just do it. Should I do it? I'm gonna do it. I took out my phone, and I started typing. Because I have a flair for the dramatic, I wanted to get this done before the day was out. I am feeling compelled, deeply, I typed at the end of the resignation email, to spend my time and energy joining the struggle against the climate crisis. I believe that in the coming years, we all will have some role to play. Happy Earth Day, King. And I pressed send. But let's back up a little bit, as this was only one in a long trail of steps outside my comfort zone, which just keeps expanding. I grew up as the only kid I knew whose family composted and consistently used a clothesline. I had a general sense of having progressive values, disliking waste, and a dim understanding of the greenhouse effect, fossil fuels, and global warming. Let me pause my story here to say that there were, however, a whole lot of people who had much more than a dim understanding of the link between fossil fuels and climate change, and even when I was a child in the 90s, had known about this link for decades. People who worked for the fossil fuel industry at big companies like ExxonMobil. Fast forward to 2016, when I became pregnant with my first kid. Towards the end of my first trimester, to my complete shock, Donald Trump won the election. For the first time, I wondered if I'd made a mistake deciding to have a child. Life went on, and I didn't yet dive into the world of politics and activism, but I did dive headlong into the world of cloth diapering, and yes, there is a whole separate world just for this, and household sustainability. In 2020, pregnant with my second child, the pandemic hit. We moved to Virginia to be closer to my spouse's family. I've lived in your district, Senator, since early 2021. Before we moved, I told my spouse that if we were moving near DC, then we were going to become more politically active. I was tired of feeling like I was just having an impact in my own household and wanted to be part of something bigger. I had this increasing sense that climate change was something I wanted to do something about. So I Googled climate organizations and I found the Chesapeake Climate Action Network and CCAN Action Fund. Through volunteering and continuing to educate myself on climate justice, my conviction that this is an all-hands-on-deck moment only grew. And along the way, I found other people who were also rising to the occasion, some of whom are in the room with us now. These really felt like my people. They saw the importance of small and large actions, from composting to advocacy, that would help us all work toward a livable planet for future generations. But as the parent of 2 young kids with a full-time job, I was having a hard time juggling everything. I came to the realization that what I really wanted to do was devote myself full-time to activism. So late at night on Earth Day in 2022, I sent that resignation letter and declared myself for the climate. Eventually, after many hours of volunteering and online learning, I got my job at CCAN. All of us here have other jobs too, as teachers, lawyers, analysts, parents, grandparents, and more. We all have this in common. We feel a strong conviction to spend our time fighting for what is precious. All of us sitting in front of you today at some point made the chance to join CCAN and to step outside of our comfort zones by lobbying lawmakers like you, because we care about our communities, our families, and the future. That is what brings us here today. Senator, as lawmaker, you have such a valuable role to play in this all-hands-on-deck scenario. And so today we're asking for your support in passing a Make Polluters Pay bill that would recover financial damages from fossil fuel companies that have had a measurable negative impact on the state's assets and on our communities, and would instead put that money into a fund that would increase our state's resilience and provide relief to communities impacted by extreme weather. During the past few years alone, I've read about more and more extreme weather happening around the world, and it's happening closer to home. I heard about the air quality impacts of wildfire smoke talking to my sister on the phone who's in the Bay Area, and then the next year I experienced it here as smoke drifted down from wildfires in Canada, and I kept my children indoors on what should have been the most beautiful days of the year. I've knocked on the doors of community members here in Nova whose homes have been repeatedly damaged by flooding. These events are becoming more frequent and closer to home because of burning fossil fuels. Just as big oil is required to help pay for the aftermath of an oil spill, they should be required to help pay for these climate disasters caused by decades of burning fossil fuels and willful misinformation. It's the fair thing to do, the right thing to do, and financially the sensible thing to do to help communities recover from the damages caused. In this moment, the Trump administration is gutting important federal programs like FEMA that help people recover from natural disasters. State-level action is more important than ever, and that makes your power as our state senator more important than ever. If you take no action, Virginia communities will get left behind, with everyday people left shouldering the financial burden of putting our communities back together. If you do take action and support this bill, the costs to big oil will be a drop in the bucket, but that money will go directly to making our infrastructure more resilient and to helping our communities and our children's communities recover should extreme weather happen. And extreme weather will happen. Senator, can you support this bill?
Yay. Thank you, Ting. If I was Ting's fictional senator in this scenario, I would say yes immediately. And that's the power of the public narrative. So I want to take a couple seconds and hear from you all. I think we all know that that was moving and impactful and had a clear thing to take action on for this senator. So let's get into it. Can someone raise their hand and say why you think Ting began as they did?
We're getting that.
Is someone in Nova speaking?
So unmuted us in case anyone feels inspired. But...
Oh.
I think I can answer. So I think she begins as she does because it's trying to kind of like put us in her shoes and like give a more like relatable sort of personal experience, something that probably a lot of people could resonate with, and also just show that like getting into climate action, like becoming a leader, can start with something as simple as like just sending a message about Earth Day, and then that like all that's like the first step is like so important, and then you can keep on moving forward and become like a really good leader for this sort of thing. So
Yes, that I have nothing to add. That's exactly right. That's perfect. I could really, it was a real story. I could see myself late at night having anxiety too, and see the tangible things that Ting was going through. Can someone, there were challenges for Ting's story of self. Can someone share a challenge at the core of the story, or a choice that Ting made?
I can do that.
Great.
I'm Jim. So Jim, in the room here, clearly the challenge Ting had was she had to let go of her job. And I think that was a challenge, that realizing inside she had this thing concerning her, which is, I think we all share that. And then she had a job and a family that was growing. So what could she do? And she had to make a profound decision here, which a real profound decision about her job and capacity.
Yeah, 100%. And what was the outcome of that choice to write a late night Earth Day resignation letter?
I can take that one. Oh no, actually, someone outside the room wanted to take it. I'll let someone else take it. Or I will go. All right. Well, I think there are several outcomes. The one that resonated the most with me is getting in front of the delegate or the representative and making the call to action for a very compelling and forceful call to action to support specific legislation around make polluters pay, and creating a very compelling argument for why that benefits all Virginians.
Yes, 100%. One outcome, but to break it down into like the story elements, that's something that's true. Ting was in the room with the legislator. That is a broad outcome of Ting's story of self. But if you were to chunk it up and think through when the story of self actually happened in Ting's narrative, the outcome is she quit her job, and then they were hired at CCAN and started doing this work. And then Ting moved to the story of us to talk about how everyone got in the room, and then was in that moment with the legislator, just for clarity on where these stories were. So you can think through your story of self. It's not that whole 6 minutes. It's, I didn't know what to do. I quit my job and now I'm working at CCAN. Can someone share, it's also important for us to remember that these are real stories. Can someone share any image or moment that helped make this story pop for you?
I can take that one. I think for me, one of the important images or moments that Ting brought up in their narrative was talking about how they and their spouse had decided to have a child. And then, like, in that moment, we had the first election of Trump. And that was like a huge pivotal moment that they were thinking about, like, do I want to bring a child into this world that, I mean, 2016 was so doom and gloom. I mean, it still is, but like 2016 was the start of this like era of, I don't know, just like uncertainty. And I think like research shows that for a lot of people, thinking about their children and the futures of their children is one of the strongest ways to get people engaged in climate action. So bringing up that part of their narrative was super important to get people to relate to them and like feel that urgency. And so I appreciated that imagery.
Marissa, thank you so much. And it's good because we're 2 minutes behind, and that previews the next question, which is, what is the value that this story communicates? Can someone take that answer to the next step and share a value that you heard in Ting's story?
I'd like to say what really, excuse me, my name is Teresa Bohan, but I'd like to say what really impressed me about Ting was she took it to a far higher level. Instead of limiting herself to an impact in her household, which is very important, you know, because she's raising 2 children, but she took it to a next higher level to impact many other people and to give up her job and to join CCAN. And I think that makes the biggest difference. And plus the fact she has evidenced great bravery in bringing a second child into this world. She's gone forward despite all this Trump business, and she's pushing ahead. But anyway, she launched forward beyond just her mere household to try to help and impact the world at large. And I think that's a big deal.
Totally agree. And I'm so sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, we have time for one brief question.
So how did the legislator vote?
That guy we need to work on. That's why we're gonna keep telling this story. Yeah.
We'll see you next year.
Yes, great question. We're gonna keep pushing on this one. But as I move on, the thing that I think I just want to name is that the value that's real. One value that's really clear in Ting's story is care for family and community and the desire to leave the world better for future generations. And like we just heard from someone in Nova, that resonates with people, and that's a value that people can share. And so those are the types of values that you can think through how you want to communicate. And I'm going to kick it to Isla.
Great. Can you all hear me?
Xander, sorry, Isla, just one quick thing I want to say, point out is the sensory details, excuse me, can be really important for really good storytelling. So I just want to note, like, things started off talking about like a very specific moment, and I could just sit in the room and be there with her. So like helping to paint a picture can help the story sort of come alive. So go ahead, Isla. Just wanted to name that. Go ahead.
Yeah, good thing to point out. And I think we're going to hear sort of a similar thing in the section that I'll be talking about. So my name is Isla. I use she, her pronouns, by the way, and I'm the DC organizer with CCAN. And today I'm going to be introducing a volunteer who's very involved with the DC action team, Tony. He went through this training, story of self and full linked public narrative training with us last year. And I just reached out to him and asked him to kind of share his story of self that he spent some time developing in this training. And that is what I will be sharing with you all today. So as we take these 2 minutes to listen to Tony's story of self, make sure to focus on like the elements that we've been talking about, especially taking notes on the challenges, the choices and outcomes, and then also, yeah, values that you're hearing coming through and details and moments that really bring his story to life. So get started.
Growing up in Maine, I have always had a love for the outdoors. From hiking to kayaking to swimming and so much more, nature has always meant so much to me, and I've developed a deep love for it. I never considered myself a particularly political person, though, growing up. I cared and stayed informed, but I always figured that political activists and other people involved in political movements would take care of the issues that I cared about. It wasn't until I went to college and began to engage more deeply with the climate movement that I realized how wrong I had been. I remember one moment in particular. I was reading this book called Lies My Teacher Told Me for a history class. The book is all about how the American education system has often grossly misrepresented our history and current political climate to students. And one chapter in particular about climate change changed my life. It went into detail about how far off our country actually was from meeting the goals we needed to stop climate change and to have the cleanest environment possible. I remember reading this chapter and feeling rattled, physically upset, angry, frustrated, hopeless. For days after, I felt lost, unsure of where to go from here, and unsure what I, as one person, could do to change this situation. But after some time, having been involved in camp, I started by I realized that I needed to put myself days after I felt lost, unsure of where to go from here, and unsure what I, as one person, could do to change this situation. But after some time, I realized that I needed to put myself out of my comfort zone and get involved. I started by taking on the challenge of working on a local state rep's re-election campaign. This state rep was a climate champion, having been involved in campaigns to push for clean energy, conservation, and so much more. By working on this campaign, I met so many people in my community who cared deeply about environmental issues. And by talking to them and energizing them in a coalition and a movement, I began to see that change was possible. We successfully got the representative reelected, and I saw that we had put a climate advocate back in office who could push for policies on climate change and other environmental issues that mattered most to us. From that point onwards, I did not think of myself as someone who did not belong in the work of politics.
Great. Yeah. It's good to hear his story. So yeah, just to debrief it quickly, I'd love to ask, what sort of challenges and choices do you all hear coming up in Tony's story?
I think that reading that book and sort of being forced to reckon with a challenge that he hadn't previously had to reckon with, it clearly spurred some serious action and changed, I guess, how he viewed the climate disaster and what his role in solving it was.
Mm-hmm. And what type of choice do you hear him making?
I mean, the first obvious one being like joining that specific campaign, and eventually sort of more broadly, like I was saying before, seeing where he fits into solving the crisis.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think Tony's story has a very clear, moment that it's rooted in which you can really see his thought process and this clear choice that he's making. Going off of that, I'm curious if y'all are hearing any like details, moments, images, sensory details that kind of make this story resonate with you. Like what do you think you would remember from this story?
I think for me it'd be about like the comfort zone that he spoke about. He cares about the environment, like many of us do. But I think many of us maybe are afraid to cross the line to activism because we rely on other people to do that for us. And at some point, those people have to cross the line themselves to lead others. And I think if we get more people involved, that we can build a stronger community. I think that's a big step. I think I identify with that step a lot.
Yeah, that's something really strong. I think I also see that kind of in like the outcome of his story. Like he is starting as thinking that he doesn't have like a huge like amount of political power, that that's something for other people to take care of, and then he really does like have that like personal transformation where he sees himself as powerless. And I think, yeah, the personal details that are like just a degree of like vulnerability, like talking about himself, is what like really allows us to like resonate there. And then what values are we hearing in his story? And feel free to join in online as well.
Very important.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say a very important value is honesty, because it's, the story starts with lies like picture told. And that's a huge issue in everything in politics. It's hard to even know if anyone knows how to tell the truth. But that's a strong value. If you don't hold the truth as a value, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And just that one really moved me.
Yeah, honesty and transparency too. I hadn't really thought of that similarly. Johanna, did you have something you wanted to add to?
I was just going to say that his very first image about being from Maine and having an appreciation of nature, I really related to that value. I think that's really what brought me in as a CCAN volunteer. Is just I also grew up in a really beautiful place, and I guess the value that you want everyone to have that same beauty of nature. And that was a value I saw.
Yeah, I hear that one too. And I think to me that also brings up thoughts about like, plugging in locally, which is something, I still see in Tony as he like advocates locally in DC, that like place-based element to the way he wants to make change. Another thing I just want to highlight about Tony's story that I really love is the way he talks about like his heart pumping, like when he reads that story, like it's a very, you could tell that in a way that's more like, I read this book and it changed my mind. And he really like went into the like sensory moment, which I mean, just like if you're a policymaker or even another person listening to that story, it allows you to like resonate a bit more, and it makes it more like memorable and unique to him as well. So yeah. Thank y'all.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Isla, and wonderful videos and demonstrations from Tony and Ting. So kudos to them. Before we get into our breakout, I wanted to just give a brief moment to introduce a new staff person. This is literally the first thing that they're joining at CCAN. They'll be starting officially next week, but give a round of applause to Beth. And Beth, maybe if you just want to say a word just to introduce yourself, that'd be great. And then we'll move into the practice.
Thank you, Mustafa. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Beth Landry. My pronouns are they, them. I will be organizing in Maryland. I'm joining you from DC. I am originally from the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I've done a lot of different organizing. I've been a shop steward. Uh, I also just moved back to the area a couple of months back. We were living abroad in Sweden. So welcome back and eager to get started with everybody.
Thanks so much, Beth. So Beth is going to be primarily focused on Montgomery County and Prince George's County. So volunteers that are on the call from those areas, look out for Beth, and definitely a great person to have a one-on-one with in the next few weeks. So welcome, Beth. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide, or we're on the breakouts. Yeah, actually go to the next slide, Sander. I think I've got instructions there. Okay, great. So we're going to go into regional breakouts. So for our NOVA and, well, I think just for our NOVA team, it's going to be hybrid. We'll have one person that's going to be joining you all, I believe, virtually. And DC, I think everybody, it looks like everybody's in person. And for everyone else, you'll be joining into regional virtual groups. So I'll launch those in just a second here. So we're going to be doing this practice until we'll be coming back at about 12:50. And then we'll have a group debrief for 10 minutes, and then we're going to break for lunch. So we're going to take about 15 minutes for you all to silently develop your story of self in the worksheet that's provided. I believe it's page 16 in the participant guide. So we want you to really think through, like, what is a challenge and a moment where you faced the challenge, a moment where you've made the choice and the outcome. It oftentimes, right, our stories and our lives are over a series of moments and a series of experiences. But identifying a moment can just help illustrate the broader points and help people lean into, your experience. So then you're going to do that for 15 minutes. You'll go around in your group for about 30 minutes or up to 30 minutes, just sharing one-on-one everybody sharing their story. So you get about 2 minutes to share the story that you've come up with thus far, and then you're going to get 3 minutes of coaching from our great facilitators and the other participants. And then you'll have some time at the end just to make some notes and adjustments to your story. And no expectation that you're going to come out with a Ting story or a Tony story, but that you are going to have drafted components of the story that you can continue to work on in the coming days. Okay, so I'm going to launch the breakout rooms. And I'll see you all back here at about 12:50. Okay, let's see, we've got Maryland, DC, looks like we've got Hampton Roads, and we've got Northern Virginia, and okay, I think we've got everybody back. Okay. Wonderful. All right. So thank you all for taking some time to start thinking about your own story of self and what is the moments, the experiences that you've had that have presented you with a challenge that's caused for you to make what we think are great choices to come and get involved in organizing around climate. So I want to give 2 to 3 people an opportunity just to share their story of self that they have drafted in the large group. And I'll give up to 1 minute of quick feedback to that person. So looks like we've got, let's see, Syra from the DC team, would you be willing to share your story with the group?
Yeah, of course. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mustafa. Okay, so by the way, I'm Syra. My pronouns are she, her. It's nice to meet everybody. I'm just gonna dive in. I've always been someone who stands up for what's right, whether that means speaking out about the devastation of wildfires or feeding stray dogs when I travel. I've had a deep connection to the environment and animals for as long as I can remember. Maybe it comes from growing up in a turbulent home where I had to learn young what it meant to protect what little peace I had. So when I moved out on my own, I created my own sanctuary, a safe space for me and my dog, who's more like family than a pet. But that peace was absolutely shattered when my building's management failed to maintain our carbon monoxide alarms. First, there was a gas leak they brushed off. Then came the second, which was even worse than the first. I came home to find my door kicked in. Firefighters had broken in to save my dog from a life-threatening gas leak. That moment hit me hard. It wasn't just about my home anymore. I started thinking about how many others have been affected or even killed by something so preventable, and how dangerous not just for us, but for the planet gas truly is. That's when I made a choice to take Jessica Lefty up on learning about what she had been learning with CCAN and just trying to see if I could be more involved in CCAN and just essentially learning what it stands for and just to get involved. Not just to advocate for better safety, but to fight for a clean energy future. Because protecting my space, my dog, and our planet are all part of the same fight for me.
Oh my goodness, a round of applause for Syra. That was so good, Syra. The specific reasons why. One is, to me, it's really clear the values you're talking about. You're talking about safety, having healthy homes, addressing the climate crisis. There's a whole package, and there's probably more of values that I know that I relate to. It seems like to me what I'm taking away, pretty clear challenges like having as gas in homes, having safe and having healthy homes that aren't a risk to the inhabitants and loved ones. And the choice that you made to get involved. One note that I want to make as context for people is that Jessica is one of our DC CCAN volunteers who had a relationship with Syra, and so knew the story, knew this experience that Syra was having, and based on that relationship, invited Syra to be joining our work here. And Syra's taken on a leadership, doing a lot of leadership work and coming off a lot of our DC organizing work, including this. So Syra, I think it checks all the boxes, and it's really, really great. How did you feel sharing that?
It's definitely an emotional story. I think there are a lot of pieces involved that I neglected to share, like me freaking out and being ballistic about obviously my dog and not knowing where he was. And Jessica actually saw me that night. She and her partner were the ones to kind of help me through that. So I think it's emotional because, like I pointed out in what I just wrote and shared, is that yes, thank God my dog is fine and I was not there, so I'm fine. But I think the immediate reaction was how many people were not fine and not accounted for. And I think it just goes to show how what is the word you used, Peter? Negligence that all of these really big management companies in DC and just in the nation don't necessarily care about the small things that could literally kill somebody. And I think it just, in general, gas is very dangerous and unhealthy for our environment. So anyways, to wrap it up, the solution basically was we formed a tenant association in my building, and it got to the point where we had to threaten board management, and all our carbon monoxide alarms have been replaced, and everything's good in the building now. But I think that's just one building out of 50 plus. So Anyways, thank you all for listening. And yeah, it was a very emotional story.
Well, and Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that. And look, I think actually you're already getting into the story of us, which we'll get to next week. But really, thank you so much for sharing that. I know we might go just 1 or 2 minutes over. I don't want to keep folks from lunch too much, but I'd like to give one more person just an opportunity to share their story. And Dolly, I think we got Ellie. Is that right?
Hi, yep. Hello.
Okay, Ellie, please, the floor is yours.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Eliezer. I use he, him pronouns. I'm 23 years old, and I live in Midlothian. I got involved in activism in general because I grew up in Virginia as a queer teenager, and particularly as a out trans teenager. That experience had already taught me by the time I reached my early 20s that in order to exist, I had to fight people. I had to explain certain concepts to them that, even as a teenager, the adults around me didn't always understand. And just to use the correct bathroom, I had to make sure that the world was a good place for people like me. And when I learned about climate change and started really considering it as something I would have to reckon with for the rest of my life, especially as a young person, I encountered a lot of climate anxiety, especially my peers. People talking about it as the end of the world, and honestly being very deactivating because in the process of acknowledging the scope of the problem and the depth of it, we wouldn't acknowledge how we could do anything about it. So I started reading a book called The Solutions Are Already Here by Peter Gelderloos. And I read it at a time when I felt really scared about the direction the world was going in. And it told me, even just in the introduction, there's a line in it that sticks in my head forever, which is, in any case, there is no world in which standing up for the planet, other living creatures, and ourselves will not make things better. And in the pursuit of that, I wanted to join a local organization that would do things nearby that I could go to without having a car, and that would do work that embodied just doing anything at all, rather than sitting around and talking about it all the time and being scared. So that's why I joined CCAN, and that's been very fulfilling for me because I feel like I actually have the power to make a better world for myself and others, rather than sit by and watch as the crisis eats us alive.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ellie. Thank you. And so just a quick feedback on that is thank you. Yeah, it was really a great story. You've got a clear set of values from my perspective. One is just like welcoming others and fighting for yourself and fighting for others who aren't as visible or having a seat at the table. You talked about always having to fight to exist. And you mentioned the use of the correct bathroom. You talked about this very explicit challenge of connecting that to like we have to fight for the planet. And I really love the example of like just leaning into the moment of reading the book and how that inspired you. And the outcome is also clear that you're here and that you joined an organization that you're organizing with. I think the one thing that I would consider leaning into, Ellie, is a moment around the challenge, of like fighting for yourself, or a moment of recognition of the climate crisis coming out of like reading that book. But that would just be one thing I would think about, and that would help folks lean into your story, at least from my perspective. But otherwise, it's really, really great. It's so incredible that you came together with that in this brief breakout. So thanks so much, y'all. We're going to come back. I want to make sure folks have time to eat. We're going to come back at 1:30. I'm going to keep the Zoom. You know what, actually, I'm going to close the Zoom and I'll start it back up at 1:30. So join promptly again at 1:30, and we're going to get started on the relational meeting practice. So thank you so much, y'all.
So we get off Zoom now, right, Mustafa?
You're welcome. Well, yeah, I'd probably just give your computer a rest and come back on right at 1:30. We'll get started.
Got it.
Thanks so much, everybody. See you then.
All right, we'll give one more minute. Okay. Ting, are you there? All right. I just added a Northern Virginia group. Where did they go? Here it is. Ting, if you are talking, you are on mute.
I am talking now.
Okay, great.
Oh.
We're ready to roll.
Yes, we're ready to roll. Sorry.
You're so good.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. I am juggling 2 different keyboards. So anyway, we just completed our story of self, and I just heard a lot of amazing stories that are incredibly put together in the 12 minutes or so that we actually provided. And I want to introduce you to another of our volunteer leaders who couldn't be here today, but has been a great organizer with us. She went through this training last year, and she now is an internal organizer for the Nova New Leaf team, which means that she gets to do kind of onboarding and one-on-ones with our new volunteers. So we just completed our session on the story of self, and now we're going to use those stories. And here are some examples on when you might want to share your story of self, and Allison's going to go ahead and talk about that. Go ahead and press play, whoever you are.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for our second session in the Organizing Skills series, the Relational Meeting Training. Last week, you practiced articulating your story of self, a story that illustrates values you hold, values that motivate you to act on climate. Tonight, we are going to use those stories. There are many times when you may want to share your story of self, when writing a letter to the editor, when giving a public comment, or when meeting with your local legislator. But today, we will talk about the time when you will most frequently share your story, when building connections with your fellow activists. We are talking about the one-on-one conversation, or the relational meeting. It's called that because the goal of the conversation is to set a foundation for a relationship between you, the organizer, and the person being one-on-one, the organizee. It's a proven way to build strong relationships. These relationships are critical if we are going to succeed as a grassroots movement. These are the relationships that sustain our organizing work. Sometimes organizing requires us to take actions that push us outside of our comfort zone, whether that's getting into a room with an elected official, petitioning on the street, or leading a meeting. The relationship we build during the one-on-ones are what sustains us in the movement when we are taking action and learning the stories of what brings us to take action on climate justice, help us identify the common values and interests that form the bedrock of the story of us. And it is us that decides together what we need to do right now to act on those shared interests and values. Welcome, everybody.
Yay. So now we are going to learn the basics for one-on-one meetings. We're going to be practicing the one-on-ones with a focus on sharing your story of self. And we're going to be making commitments to have one-on-ones with each other beyond this event. Okay. So what is a one-on-one meeting? One-on-ones are scheduled. You have a set time to meet. You set expectations in the one-on-one that you're going to be building a relationship based on shared values. These are not interviews, and you're going to share your story of self. This conversation, the one-on-one conversation, is going to be one that shows your values through story sharing and opens up the conversation for them, the person you're having the one-on-one with, to share their own story. Awesome. And some types of one-on-one conversations. I have to say that my laptop just shut off, so I no longer can see my own notes and scripts. So if anyone wants to stop me if I'm not supposed to be saying these things, go for it. Good.
You're good.
Right.
Go ahead, Tim. You got this slide in the next one.
Perfect. Okay. So there are recruitment one-on-ones, which are typically with somebody that you are just meeting for like the first or second time. And your goal is to kind of connect with them and bring them into the group somehow. So through that conversation, you want to make personal connections, share your own story. You You want to probe for shared experiences and get them to do a little bit of sharing of their own story, if you can. Connect on shared values. And then you are going to pivot to engagement with a specific ask, so that get them to kind of commit to something. You then have maintenance one-on-ones. Those are one-on-ones with people that you already have a relationship with, where you catch up on a personal level. Maybe you haven't spoken for a while. Maybe you just have a reason to touch base, debrief recent actions by the organizer and team, and offer coaching. A good guideline is once every 2 weeks. That's not always possible, depending on the shape of your kind of like group and organizing situation. And then you have escalation one-on-ones. The goal in an escalation one-on-one is to get someone to take on a new role, not just do a new action, but something more ongoing, and kind of escalating their leadership. For example, if they have come out to a rally, ask them to help run logistics for the next rally, or ask them to take on some kind of like ongoing leadership role within your action team. Okay, and now I'm gonna hand it off to Allison. As I said, she's an internal organizer for our action team in Northern Virginia. And she is going to talk about how she uses one-on-ones to recruit new members.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I've been an internal organizer with the Nova New Leaf chapter for about 1.5 years now. Organizing 101 was a beneficial training to build up both my skills and confidence to find my place in the climate movement. Just like anything, organizing is a skill that you can grow, but also takes practice. You will connect with people on different values and different levels. Some people you will connect with and they will instantly become an important member of the team on day one, while others, the conversation may feel awkward and take more time. All of these conversations are valuable and can teach you how to be a better organizer, as well as how to improve your one-on-ones in the future. With every person that we help to onboard into our organization, they have the opportunity to find their own place in our group to strive for the betterment of our community. It's a great feeling ending a one-on-one with someone that thanks you for reaching out directly to help them get involved in our organization. As an organizer, by engaging in one-on-ones, it empowers both yourself as you support the climate movement, as well as guiding others to find how they fit in as well. Hi.
Fantastic. Thanks for those videos, Allison, and Ting for getting all that together. So there's two specific sort of things that I think are really helpful for just remembering, that are easy to remember going into a one-on-one, that will help you be really successful. One is the 4 C's, what I call the 4 C's, and the second one, which Xander will talk about when I'm done, is the smart ask. But the 4 C's, they are connection, context, commitment, and I didn't make the last one onto the slide. I'm sorry, catapult. So think of these as less as like steps to take in an order, but this is really just a framework for how to approach having a one-on-one. So think the one-on-ones, there really are a two-way conversation. So make sure that you're sharing about yourself, as well as, asking good open-ended questions and actively listening. So the first thing you're trying to do is to build that connection. So share why you care about the issue and ask what the issue means to them. We put connection at the top because it's so important to the one-on-ones, but not because only it happens, once in a conversation. You're actually are taking the time throughout the conversation to explore each other's values, your stories, and to understand not just what you each care about, but also really like why, in a personal way, why. It's an opportunity, right, to share your story of self, and to ask open-ended questions, and again, to practice that active listening. Number 2 is context. So provide context for what you're working on and why it's urgent and important, and what you're doing to create change. Exchange resources such as ideas, information, skills. So when you request a one-on-one, or you're recruiting somebody for a one-on-one, establish the context as to like why you're asking them for the meeting. Be very transparent about it. Get the commitment, number 3. So a successful one-on-one ends up with some sort of specific commitment, and commitments don't just have to be about signing petitions or showing up to an action. You may feel like you've made significant progress in building relationship with this person in the first one-on-one, but like you're not exactly sure what you want to ask them to do, or maybe you just feel like you need a little bit more time with them. The next commitment could be, hey, could we get together again next week? I would love to just like to continue to talk some more. Fourth is the catapult. So catapult is providing just an opportunity for people who are like particularly excited that you meet with and are fired up about an issue to actually just right from the get-go take on some sort of leadership or to get more involved. So if the person seems ready and excited, they don't want to just show up to the next rally that you're doing, but they actually want to help out. Maybe the ask you make to them is like, hey, would you feel comfortable like managing our sign-in table? I can just show you how we're checking people in, and that thinking about what are the things that you could just elevate them to do. Next. Okay. Let me just give an example. Take a moment to actually, if we go back to the last slide, Xander. Sorry about that. So it's important to just remember that when you're doing the one-on-one, you're not trying to get somebody plugged into all the campaigns. Like you'll have maybe some set of asks that you're thinking about going in, but we don't want to just rush and jump to the ask. It's important to remember that you are actually building a relationship with a complicated and beautiful and wonderful human being. So the main goal of the initial one-on-one is to really, again, just to break it down to the basics, is to identify the values and what's motivating them. So this is not the last time you're ever going to see them. So just think about like an example with a connection. Let's just say you're in establishing a connection with somebody in a one-on-one, that they say something like, growing up, I would walk with my parents to my neighbor's baseball games in our local park. The walk was beautiful, and we would pass by flowers. My goodness, I just moved to Northern Virginia and I miss that. I want that community again. So if somebody says something like that, you're getting a sense of their appreciation for nature and for green spaces and for protecting those. And so as a part of the context for that you established for why we're talking, you could say, well, we've been doing invasive vine removal work, and there's an invasive vine removal events that are coming up. It sounds like maybe this is the type of sort of community that you're looking to be building and the kind of action you'd be interested in taking. And then you could seek the commitment for them to show up to that. And maybe the catapult is to recruit other people to come. So that's what I mean, like listening for those cues that that could help guide you what you actually think is, as Xander will talk about, is the smart ask. So Xander, you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yes, I do. I actually just want to dissect the example that you just shared. So when you're doing a smart ask, you want to pay attention to the shared values and pull on them and pull on that thread when you ask this person to do something. In the example that Mustafa shared, he would say something like, I really resonated with your story about growing up and walking through nature. That was my experience too. And then you would connect it to their skills and resources and what they're looking for. So you would say, I love the idea of continuing to build community with you, because this is someone who has said that they're interested in building community. And then what you want to do is people want to join organizations and do things that are meaningful. I think that that's something all of us share today. We've seen how we think we are making an impact in our local community, and that's what keeps us coming back. And so we want to make it clear that the action we're asking someone to take is going to be impactful. And you can use a little bit to share that in the example I put in the chat. You can say, our invasive vine removal campaign aims to keep 100 trees alive by the end of this month. If you and I both go on Saturday, we can get over halfway to our goal. And then you want to make sure that your ask has some specificity. And this is what makes it even more clear and even more smart. You want to give someone a clear date and time to respond to, or a clear action they can take. So then at the end of this ask, you say, can you join me at the park on Smith Street at 11 a.m. this Saturday? And that gives that person something to respond to. And then they may say yes, and that's great. But they also may say no, and that's okay too. We 100% respect the boundaries that folks set for themselves. And we know that there's room for you even in this movement, but the person that you're talking to may not see themselves in the movement yet. I think we heard in some people's stories earlier in the day that there was a time when all of us didn't quite see ourselves as leaders. We weren't sure that we were the type of person that would be political, like Tony shared. But now we are involved, and people we're talking with and having a one-on-one with may be at different places in that journey. So if you get a no, ask a couple follow-up questions to get a little more clarity. For example, if someone says, no, I can't make the meeting, I've got work, say that's all right. See if it's a timing question. Say, we can have someone catch you up and chat the next day. We'd love to keep you more involved. And make sure that person knows that we value their time and their schedule and we can work with them. You also may ask someone to go do outreach with you, and they may say, nope, that sounds scary. Or they may just say no and appear a little hesitant. So check in, see if they're nervous. Make it clear that we do have trainings. We'll help you learn how to knock on someone's door. We'll go with you. You're not going to do it alone. And that's okay if that's not their thing. Check in with them and ask them, how do you want to be involved? And let the conversation flow from there. See if they want to help another way. If someone says no to canvassing, you can see how they would want to be involved. Maybe they're an artist. Maybe they would love to do painting and lead a paint event. Maybe they want to be behind the scenes. They want to do some research and they don't want to do a big social setting. Just keep checking in and see what people share and give with you. Mustafa, it's you. But I can also open it up. So
Yeah, if you want to open up, I'm in
sure.
the breakout rooms. Why don't you actually facilitate, Xander?
Great. So that is a little bit about what you should expect when you're having a one-on-one meeting, how you make a smart ask to pull on someone's shared values and give them specificity about what we can do together and how we can keep working together. So do folks have questions? We have time for probably 2 to 3 questions.
Okay.
Which one would be the obvious one, but I think I have that this is all really good stuff. And I would say that my big issue is somebody who, we're all in I'll call a group thing. We're in a group that has common shared values about the environment. But if we want somebody to come in that we're doing this work, volunteering and helping, take out invasives or whatever, somebody we know who doesn't share our values, is there a way of not luring, but helping them, helping to see the light in a way that might be more conducive to them helping us when they would not in the first place?
Yeah, Jim, thank you for that question. I hope that this doesn't feel like a non-answer, but I do think that we may have more in common with people's values than we expect. And that's why getting clarity on our story of self is so important. That's why when we did that story of self example earlier, we shared that it doesn't have to be a I was an environmentalist and I hiked all throughout my time growing up. You can share a story of a challenge in your life or an opportunity in your life that illustrates the value of value and justice, the value of caring for your family and your community, the value of seeing a loved one go through a health impact and wanting to fight for healthy communities for all of us. And so I think there's lots of different ways to tell those stories. And those are the types of questions that I would ask this person that you're having a one-on-one with. If they're not giving you a bunch of climate things, I think see about the values that they have that may be more universal in terms of caring for loved ones and community. And those are some of the things that I would think about.
Thank you.
What else? Mustafa, do you want me to take one more example?
Sure.
Okay. Can someone who has either done a one-on-one or been one-on-one with an organizer share a little bit about the first ask the organizer made of you, or the first value you and your organizer connected on, just so we can have an example about this? Ooh, I think I just saw two people unmute. Can Quinn and Uta, did both of you, were either of you curious to share? Okay.
I can go if you want.
Yeah.
The Isla was the first person who did a one-on-one with me when I became an organizer here, or not became an organizer, became involved in stuff here. And I don't remember everything that we talked about, but I remember her inviting me to something. It was like one of the kind of rallies for I think it was the Healthy Homes Act that was going on in DC at that point. And I didn't realize that we were using this framework. And then when I did the organizing training, I was like, okay, yeah, that's what she did. That's how it went through. But yeah, I remember it kind of, at the end, it was sort of, thank you for this call. Can you commit to showing up at this time and doing this thing? And that was, I don't know if that is helpful, Xander.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. I just wanted to help have a good example. Last call for questions before we move to a role play, so you can see what this looks like in action.
Okay. We have a logistical question. What's up?
Great.
The stuff about the smart ass wasn't in the paper that we got. And I was wondering, is it possible to get it sent to me as slides or something?
Yes.
I'd like to do that in my packet.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So we're going to do a 8-minute model and a 2-minute debrief. Actually, Dustin, could I ask you to help keep track of time and just give us and just put a note in the chat when we need to wrap up and move on to the debrief?
Of course.
That'd be
How
great.
much time would you like?
So 8 minutes from when Ting starts. So Ting is going to be the organizer. I'm going to be the organizee, and Xander's going to be the coach. The context will be that I recently signed a Make Polluters Pay petition at a community event, and so Ting has followed up with me, and we're doing this one-on-one. So Ting, the floor is yours, or ours, but really yours.
Sounds great. All right. Hi, Mustafa. Thanks for meeting with me.
Oh,
How's it
yeah,
going?
it's going great. Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Amazing. I'm excited to talk to you too. It was great to meet you the other day when we were at that farmer's market and you signed the petition. I just wanted to connect with you about our group, but also mostly get to know you a little bit, get to know each other, and hear more about what made you stop by our booth and sign that petition that day.
Yeah. I uh yeah, I'm pretty upset with, the climate crisis. Do have some anxiety about it, and I think it makes a lot of sense to me that polluters should have to pay for, their contributions to this crisis. And so yeah, that's what motivated me to sign the petition.
Yeah, I hear that. I feel that way also, I'm a person who has I wasn't always involved in climate advocacy or activism. It's something that sort of took me a number of years to understand I guess the scope of the climate crisis and sort of the root causes of it. And now that I do understand more about the root causes of it, I'm really passionate about that make polluters pay type of legislation as well. So I'm really glad that you stopped by and I just want to hear a little bit more about you personally and like what brings you to want to volunteer.
Yeah. Um, well, I think I am, um, uh, you know, yeah, I don't, part of my anxiety is for just like the next generation. I have two kids,
Oh,
and
wow.
um, they're both 4 and 2. And just like two years ago, I think it was, when the Canadian wildfires were happening 2 years ago. And you probably remember this thing because there was all the smog in the air, and it was like kind of scary and apocalyptic. And yeah, and just to go on like my 15-minute walk to daycare, to take them to daycare, I had to, put masks on their faces, and I had to cover their stroller in a protective plastic. And it's just it was just a harsh moment of, this is just going to become much more of a recurrent reality for them. Um, and I think we shouldn't, I just don't think that they should be paying the cost of the brunt of the climate crisis. I think these polluters should have to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually have two kids also. They are 7 and 4, and yes, I can empathize with you as somebody who has even younger kids than that. That you're busy. And I really remember those the smoke and the air quality as well, and having to protect their little lungs and keep them inside. And the feeling that we would be seeing more and more of this from now on was really tangible to me as well.
Yeah, and I
Thank you
haven't
so
really
much for sharing
taken,
that.
and I haven't taken much action on, climate, because I just haven't seen so many avenues to do that as as a resident here. And but so yeah, and that's and I'm so I'm wanting to just figure out where I can help.
That's amazing. Thank you. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our action team and about CCAN. I was actually a volunteer with CCAN for about 3 years before I joined the staff in June of this past year. So I can speak to the volunteer experience a little bit too, if you have questions about that. But we are located throughout the DMV, and we have a local action team in Northern Virginia that works on a variety of issues from electrification to getting involved in state level advocacy to another campaign, Reconnection, which connects people and green spaces and community. And we would love to have you involved in any of that stuff. I was involved when I had kids your age, and lots of our events are friendly to kids, and you can join in that way. I'm thinking that possibly a fun one for you to join would be next weekend. We actually have an outreach event happening at a local festival. And if you would be able to come by, even with your kids, to help us with outreach, just like you signed a petition, we're going to be getting other people to sign the same petition that I know you feel passionate about. We'd love to hang out with your kids. That is happening next weekend in Alexandria. Can you make it? It's a Saturday at from 12 to noon.
12 to 2.
Sorry, I just made up this event.
12 to 2. Yeah, you know, I think I can make that. I will confirm with my wife, but I think I can make that work. And yeah, I would really like to do that. And I would, part of my my interest in doing this is like there's probably more families like ours who, you know, would like to take action on climate but don't know how, or maybe don't feel like they have the capacity to do that. And I think it's really cool that you have space where families are taking action together on climate, and you know, teaching our kids that practice. So I would love to try to get more families involved.
Me too. I would love that. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see you next weekend. I'll send you a follow-up email with all of the information and everything. And yeah, we'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And scene.
Take a
Perfect, everyone.
Yay, take a bow, Ting and Mustafa. So let's do a quick debrief, everyone. Can someone come off mute and share what you learned about the values that Ting and Mustafa share and when you noticed that in their conversation?
I can go. So the values that they shared was basically climate change anxiety, climate justice against polluters, and having them take on the burden of dealing with this rather than just ordinary people. Wildfires, you know, them threatening the lives of not just us but also our children, not caring about children's health, worrying about their future, and yeah, just like, you know, also just a lot of family values there as well.
Yeah. Carmen, did you come off mute to share?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Sorry, I thought you were coming off mute.
No.
Okay. Then can someone share one of the things that Ting said to kind of get Mustafa to answer that question and to think through, was there a moment where you heard Ting as the organizer ask a follow-up question or model something for themselves that really allowed Mustafa to feel that, yeah, this is a space where I can share and this person cares about me? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think the big thing was they both have young children and
Yeah.
they care about the future of their children. And Ting made it very inviting to say that there's room for the children. They're welcome to be at the various events. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's what I was thinking of too, when Ting talked about their time as a volunteer with a family, so that Mustafa knew that, yes, your kids are welcome. We want to bring everyone into this movement. And then last question, because we talked about the smart ask. Can someone talk through what was there a smart ask and what was it? What'd you hear?
This is Kevin in DC. Ting related to the very petition that he had signed originally and indicated there was an event coming up that he could attend, bring his family with him. And so she made it very relatable to him.
Yep, exactly right. The ask was rooted in the shared value that they just heard. Or yeah, Mustafa, go ahead.
No, you finish. And then, yeah, I have an additional thought, but you finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
The ask was rooted in the shared value that they talked about with making polluters pay and taking care of the future. It had a clear, impactful action by saying, you signed this thing, now let's get more people to sign it, and made it that clear. And then it was clear that Ting was thinking through what Mustafa had shared about his interests, because they made it really clear, this is something you can bring your family to. And it was also a very clear and concrete time and place. It needs a quantum physics thing to get in there because it's from 12 to noon, but that was still really clear about when it should be.
I just wanted to quickly say two things. One is, as Ting noted in the chat, this is an abbreviated sort of approximation of a one-on-one. From my experience, doing good one-on-ones requires like 30 to 45 minutes. I find it personally harder to do it more than 45 minutes because active listening is a hard thing to do and to sustain, at least for myself. But typically, I would say that they're between 30 to 45 minutes. And the one other thing I would say is, for me, I was an example of somebody that if Ting had more time within the one-on-one, there's an opportunity to escalate. Like I proactively offered, right? Like saying I could reach out to families. And so there's probably some escalation ask related to that Ting might have been able to land on by the end of the one-on-one. Great. So we're going to go into practice. We'll be practicing until about 2:50. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually disregard that because what's on the slide right now, because in terms of the breakouts. But we're going to break folks out into pairs. And for most of you, you'll have your organizer floating in and out of your pair. So, or facilitator. So facilitators, your name is in the title of the rooms that I'm about to open. No, each one of you has no more than 2 rooms for those who have virtual people. So you can float between those rooms to offer any support and advice to the pair. So once you get into your pair, you'll have the first person. You'll decide who's going to be the organizer and then who's going to be the organizee. The organizer is going to have you're going to have 8 minutes for doing the abbreviated one-on-one, and then 2 minutes for doing coaching. So when you're doing your coaching, I'll put this in the chat, or maybe somebody else can copy and paste this into the chat. But the questions I want you to think about are: 1, what are the shared values? 2, what did you have in common in terms of motivating interests? And 3, what did you learn anything about your partner in terms of like their resources or the support that they could provide. Like the example for me is my resource and support is being connected to other young families, right? Like, so those are the 3 questions. We'll do 2 rounds of it, so you'll switch roles. And then after, at about 2:35, at about 2:35 or so, I'm going to bring you all back into regional groups, and you're going to debrief what you learned about each other, and you're actually going to take the time to schedule. I'm going to challenge you all to schedule a one-on-one with one person, either with your pair or with in the regional breakout, to do between now and next Saturday, to continue to build that relationship and that sense of us, that shared connection between the 2 of you. So I'm opening up the rooms right now, and please do let me know if everybody should have an assignment, and if you do not, don't worry. We will get you assigned. Okay. All right. I think we've got everybody back here. Y'all, it has been a wonderful, and I'm sure probably feeling long afternoon, digging into your own stories, hearing about other people's stories, doing these one-on-ones, starting to practice, to building out that practice and skill. So I'm just maybe actually we can get rid of the slides, Xander, for this last bit. I think we can stop doing the slide share. So I would just like to take just a couple minutes to do a very quick debrief, and then 2 or 3 minutes on the next steps here. We'll wrap this all up by 3 o'clock. But I'm curious, maybe folks give brief 1 or 2 word answers. What values do you share? Do you realize that you share with the folks you connected with? Is Northern Virginia speaking?
I unmuted in case anyone here feels
Okay.
inspired.
I'll jump in. I thought I'm going to be all of it. The joy of we kind of share an interest in the joy of nature, just being in nature, getting around, especially Washington D.C., Pennsylvania, Maryland. We're very blessed.
Green spaces, nature, fantastic. Dustin.
Yeah. One thing that I kept hearing over and over was empathy and care. We all have different stories, different situations or things that brought us to this movement, but because we know how that made us feel, we want to do what we can to make sure no one has to go or has to feel that way in their own lives.
Yeah. For me, safety for loved ones, for our loved ones, for our community, particularly really felt that with Syra's story, and standing up for oneself and each other. Those stories of self really hit home for me. What other values?
Clean water, clean air,
clean air,
energy. Yes. We were talking about the data centers and, the impact they have on the water usage, the energy that it will be that they need in order to function, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hear green spaces. We've got empathy, caring for one another, the clean water, clean air, safety, standing up for people. What else?
Good health.
Yeah.
The ability to breathe easily and not have asthma.
Yeah. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say overarching, a strong sense of purpose and overarching that with maintaining an aim without distraction. You know, and nowadays we have a bunch of distraction with the Trump administration, et cetera, et cetera. But consistency, the theme was, you know, let's keep moving, i.e., persevere, determination, and staying on purpose without distraction.
Okay, great. Yeah, and Uda, and then I'll move on.
I really liked how the whole thing was structured to connect us.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important. So it's not like we're coming across urgently. We got to have you. We do need millions more, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But this is about how to build those relationships. I like that a lot.
Yes, yeah. So building relationships. Do folks feel like, did you walk away with that there's like having an understanding that based on these common values and interests, that there is a pathway forward to be working together?
I feel that way for sure. I feel like just seeing other people feel similarly passionate about like working in a community and helping people around us, and even in the face of like things being really hard sometimes, when it's hard to get, you know, bills passed that you want to get passed, or it's hard to advocate for things when you feel really small. It feels good to see other people who at least feel the same way and feel determined to make something happen regardless.
Fantastic, fantastic. So part of, I think really the two next steps here that I want to highlight is, one is to lean into those moments when you felt a shared value, a shared connection, and remember those. I mean, maybe even after this ends, taking a few minutes just to jot those notes down of like the moments, like when you felt this connection. Because next week we're going to go into the story of us. And the us is the people that are in this training, in this room. And so I would love for you all to be drawing upon is the moments where you felt this sense of us in this space. And that requires going back to this today, right? And talking about being in this virtual space or being in the room in Northern Virginia, and you all heard something. You all experienced something together, and it landed with you in a particular way, and it landed with others in the room in a particular way. So remembering the things that were said, the shared experience that you had today, and those moments that helped you identify those shared values and those shared interests, and made you, as Ellie started to think about and articulate, how we could be working together. So that's one piece. The next piece is to, if you're able to, I would strongly encourage you to do a one-on-one with just one person and that you connected with today. So to help facilitate that, because I know some folks are in person and that makes it a little bit easier to exchange some contact information and to schedule time. I'm okay to share a spreadsheet with contact information for all of you. And I'm happy to do that tomorrow morning. But if there's anybody that has any concerns about their contact information being shared, you can tell me now, or you can send me an email this afternoon, and I will not include your contact information in that follow-up. So those are the two things that I would encourage. And if you, still have trouble trying to get some contact information or need some help facilitating getting a one-on-one scheduled, I'm sure the organizers would be happy to help. Yes, thanks for putting my email in there. You all, thank you so much for giving 4 hours of your time today. And I know many of you will join us next Saturday and helping us to continue to build our communities of people taking action and these action teams to build sustained power that's rooted in community and relationships and is much bigger than just one issue or a set of issues. So thank you so much. And I'm going to stay on for a few minutes if folks have any other questions or things that they're wrestling with, but folks should feel free to drop off.
Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mustafa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.